Okay, so now we're riding, and one of the things I want to discuss first is when you're riding bareback, where you need to be in your balance. Biomechanics of riding with an independent, balanced seat. And what does that mean, an independent seat? I was blessed when I was, I think, 3 or 4 to be taught by an amazing German instructor. And I can remember growing up hunter, and one of the things we learned at that age was how to ride without your hands and how to ride without your stirrups. We didn't ride bareback, we rode in our saddle, but we didn't have stirrups or we didn't have our hands. So one of the things I want to talk about is how your body needs to be, even in a saddle. And bareback is the best way to teach anyone true balance in an independent seat. And what I mean by an independent seat is I'm going to face Sundance to the camera. What I don't want to see is people riding bareback like this. Look at my calves and my feet. This is really dangerous, and maybe at a gallop, because your seat is off the horse pretty much at a gallop most of the time. Perhaps, what happens is you've now created tons of space between your thigh and the horse. And you've also elevated your legs, you've got brace in your leg, you've elevated your leg, and you've taken most of the weight from your seat away. Your seat needs to be the heaviest point of contact right now. And when you're riding centered and balanced with an independent seat, your leg needs to be long. Very long, whether it's Western or dressage, very long. And the leg needs to pull you down. You need to feel your leg pull you down into your horse's back, into the saddle or the bareback pad. So right now, if I go to lose my balance on Sundance, the first thing I'm going to do in a saddle or bareback is turn my knees in. As soon as I turn my knees in, I create intense contact here. And I squeeze the horse, but I don't squeeze the horse with my calves, which means go forward. See, obviously we don't do that. But most horses will move forward off the leg. That's what they're taught. So can you imagine if you're riding bareback and you're constantly squeezing your horse? Number one, you're giving them a mixed message. You're telling them to go forward or go faster when you don't want them to. And second, you're creating brace. You're locking your leg right now. So you can't move the way you need to move. You need to create an independent seat. An independent seat is like a weeble wobble. Weeble wobbles, but it doesn't fall down. So it's like this. It's like you're rolling on your balance point, your center of gravity right now in any which direction. What allows me to move like this? It's my hips, my pelvis area. So this is the movement we need to create, especially when we're riding forward, or if we want to direct our horse to go in any other direction. We want to be able to change our weight. So bringing body awareness to how you're going to ride and where you need to be is the first step, and that's why we're talking about this. And you can be in a saddle, that's fine, but if you are going to be in a saddle, for a sitting trot, I'd like your leg to be long, which means your stirrups are long enough for your feet to just slide right in there and sit. There shouldn't be any brace in your stirrup, period. Anytime there's brace, you're going to be creating brace through your body. Now, I'm going to come to the side here and show you how my body's going to be. Now, I'm not in a saddle, obviously. When you're in a saddle, there should be a straight line from your shoulder to your elbow to your hip here, down to your heel. So if I was in a saddle, I'd have my leg back a little further like this. My foot would be pointing forward, not out to the side because I'm a dressage rider. My leg would be long, probably about this length. And you'd see a straight pole or a line going up from my heel to my hip, to my elbow, to my shoulder. So this is how I want to continue to ride. I don't want to be leaning forward. I don't want to be here, arched and tight in my back. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And I don't want to be here. So when I rise up, I was showing you through my body at the free lunge with Sundance, I rise up from my spine. I don't rise up through my shoulders. I sit, I get comfortable and I'm relaxed, and now I'm going to ask for action through my body, which says to her I'm getting ready to ask her to do something by rising up through my spine. And when you rise up through your spine, you take weight off of your back pocket. See, I'm sitting back here now. Now I'm taking weight off, I'm sitting back. So all of these little subtleties are very important because they say a lot. It's a lot of information to your horse. So it does take some time for your horse and you to understand what you're communicating. So for me, if I'm getting ready to ask her to go forward from a halt, I'm going to stop sitting with my weight in my seat as the heaviest point and rise up and push her to the right. And I'll push her with my hips, and this is really important. Let's get her a little bit more awake here. So I'm going to ask right now by pushing her with my hips. And it's hard to see in the beginning if your eye isn't accustomed to learning this or working this way. It's very subtle, and it's not always easy in the beginning to train your horse to listen to the subtlety because they're so used to being kicked. Now you'll see my inside right leg up against the girth right now, just asking her to supple a little bit more and move more underneath of herself with her hind leg. So that's just a cue or an aid. So right now I'm getting in rhythm with her at the walk, and I can feel the 4 beat. I can feel it, and I'm either going to stay with that rhythm or I'm going to ask it to increase or slow down, which would be the tempo. So if you can see my seat right now, and I can pull up my jacket a little bit, you can see my seat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I'm in rhythm right now with this 4 beat, and I all of a sudden tighten up my body, let's say I start to sit tall. Let me get her going again here. And I start to sit tall and tighten up my body, create a little bit of brace to that movement, I can slow that walk down, as you can see. And then if I open my hips up a little bit more, and I'm pushing from the back of my seat forward. So it's a scooping motion right now. I'm scooping her up with my seat from my back pocket. Then I increase the tempo, I increase the speed. And this is really important to feel this in your body, especially at the walk, because it's going to become that much more challenging at the trot, let alone the canter. And you don't ever want to go into any big movement or faster movement unless you are ready for it. That I cannot emphasize enough. So for me, we don't just start trotting and cantering. I don't just send my students on horses and lunge them or tell them to just keep trotting and cantering until you find it. We start at the walk, and then their job is to figure out how to increase that walk transition. Meaning, I'd like it a little faster, and I'd like you to listen to my hips, ask, and then I'd like it a little slower, like we're getting right now, without having to squeeze the reins. And then I'd like you to respond, Sundance, by picking up again when I ask with my hips. So I would like you to be able to learn this embodiment in this rhythm from your seat first. And make sure that your seat is nice and heavy. And your legs, now I keep my right inside leg against her so that she supples. That's the reason, so that she bends around this leg. Good girl. So right now I'm going to start to ask her to pick up into a slow sitting trot. And it's going to be, she's got less than 3 seconds. 1, 2, 1, 2 to pick it up. So how'd that go? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It literally is an embodiment, and you want to go really slow and sit back on your pocket a little bit. Sit back on your hind end. So you're going to want to 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let your ankles be loose. From your knee down, your leg long, and sit up tall, but make sure at the same time your seat is heavy, that you have contact. And let your pelvis, if you're tight, you are not going to be able to sit this. That's why a lot of people can't sit a trot, because they're tight. They have too much tension in their stirrups, they're bracing, or they have too much tension in their body. The movement comes up through your spine. So your body has to be able to be like a shock absorber and handle this right now. Doesn't mean you ride like this, but you just start to feel the way your body is affected by the movement, and you'll start to understand the biomechanics of how your body is reacting or responding to her rhythm and what's going on in your body. And if you feel like you're bouncing too much, or you're tight, it's because you're tight somewhere. It's really important that, there we go. So as soon as I start to lift my head up into that 2 beat, she picks it up. She understands what that rhythm is about. So for me, when I'm teaching my students how to ask for a canter depart from a sitting trot, they must have a horse that is capable of doing this, because it can be very dangerous to both. And I'm all about building confidence in both the rider and the horse. So we do as much proper preparation so that the horse can pick up a nice, smooth, fluid canter depart, either from a walk or a sitting trot. So when the camera, I'll wait till I pass the camera again, and I will show you, and look where my hand position is. I have almost a 90-degree angle, not quite with my arms here. My elbows are more to my side. Come on, babe. My elbows are more to my side. I'm not locked here in my arms, which creates brace. And my hand position is right above the withers, more or less in front of my belly button. And tops of my thumbs are facing upward. I've got the reins wrapped around all of my fingers so that she can feel the slightest contact from my pinky and that point of leverage. And I may almost be sitting back a little bit, especially for the canter. So as I pass letter M, I will ask her for the canter, and I'm going to set it up by kicking her inside hindquarter. And then I am also going to set it up by pushing my outside hip and opening up my inside hip. Good girl. So we're going to do that again. Here's the sitting trot. I'm going to kick her inside hip, and I'm going to lift. I'm going to push with my outside hip and lift with my inside hip, because she's got to push off with her outside hind leg in order to do the canter depart. They thrust with the outside leg and they catch their balance with the inside hind leg. So it's really important that your horse can handle, come on, your horse can handle a nice clean canter depart. How are you going to learn to have a nice sitting trot, whether you're in a saddle or bareback, if your horse can't handle it? So again, I'm going to ask. Good girl. And if she picked up the incorrect lead, I would stop her and start over again and make sure that I'm setting her up correctly and that my body is where it needs to be. And you can see how my butt never leaves her back. It keeps scooping her up into the right, and that's a pretty big trot right there. Really big trot of hers. And it takes a lot of practice to be able to sit a trot like that. And practice doesn't mean I keep trotting her. I've got to get to a point where we can ease into a big trot like that. I don't want to hurt her back, either in a saddle or not. And I'm not talking about posting right now. I'm talking about learning how to sit this movement and be able to control the movement with my seat, not my hands, and not so much contact with her, because that tells me that she's got the correct amount of balance in her hind end in self-carriage, and that's also really critical to the training that I do. So there's an example of how we start to embody the trot from the ground, how we get more inside of our body, have more awareness of our body, understanding the biomechanics of what happens to our body when we engage in movement or rhythm like that, the tempo, and then how it transfers to riding. And if your horse is really tuned into you and you have that level of mind-body synergy, meaning I'm thinking trot and I'm embodying the 2 beat, your horse is going to pick it up. But they have to be tuned in. And not tuned into your aids, not tuned into kicking, not tuned into your dressage whip. They're tuned into your seat and into your thought. So thank you, and please feel free to leave comments or ask questions. May you always be one with your horse.